how to make a Roman helmet. This is not historically accurate, of course, and it's built very differently than the real Roman helmets would have been built. But this is my version of what I think a sort of fantasy version of a Roman helmet would look like. If you haven't seen the mask video already, it's the previous video in this series, part 1, so make sure to go take a look at that. Anyway, grab your hammers, let's get started. Get the template to build this yourself by clicking the link under the video or the icon in the upper right hand corner of the video, or go directly to armortemplates.com where all of my templates are available. Here's one half of the helm part, the dome. We're going to work this. This is aluminum instead of steel. I originally was going to build this entire thing in steel, but I failed to do that with the face mask, and because of that I decided to build the whole thing out of aluminum. This is 60 thousandths, or about a little over 1.5 millimeters thick. Here I'm just dishing it out on the dishing stump and kind of flattening it a little bit in the little dishing bowl I have there. Now because I have an English wheel, I'm going to make these bumps go away very quickly. Not everybody has an English wheel, so this is definitely optional. You don't have to use this. You can just do this by hammer, which I will actually show you here in just a second. It's a lot more time to planish with a hammer, but not everybody has an English wheel, I know that. Now you can see I left a few little imperfections in here like this, and basically we're going to take a hammer on top of a polished railroad spike, and with a very flat hammer just lightly tap in that spot and it will flatten that metal out very easily. This works for all of the imperfections, whether they are dents or bumps, so both can be fixed by planishing like this. Another way to do it, you can see these two hammers look very similar, or almost identical. But one on the right has a high crown. It's got a very rounded face. The other one has a very flat crown. So with a very flat surface like an anvil, from the inside you can do the same thing. You can planish from the inside as well. Both ways work just great. And as you can see, the surface is very nice. But we're going to have to cut a little bit off the edges because the process to dish this makes it very difficult to keep straight. So now we will straighten out that edge. Now I'm tacking the pieces together. You don't have to do this. You can actually use a strip of metal like I did on the skull helmet, so you don't have to weld. The Romans would have had access to welders, really only the wealthy royal families probably, or the armorers for those families, and it would have been hydroelectric powered or very early nuclear power to power those up. They just unearthed an ancient Roman welder in Narnia, and it sold at Barrett-Jackson for $1.2 million. And these welds are very ugly. But I'm trying. I know I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying to improve. Just file these down with a couple of files and a little bit of sandpaper, and the welds go away. This little template here, you don't actually cut that out of metal. It's just to trace out what you will need to cut later on. These are the cheek plates. And I'm just giving them a little bit of a curvature with the Rawhide mallet. And then fitting them against my face, I decided that I would also, instead of curving them just in one direction, I was going to curve them in two directions. So I'm giving it a bit of a compound curve here just by hammering on it in the dishing stump. So it's curved in both ways, left, right, north, south.
Now it's a little bit plain to me, so I wanted to add some kind of a border or something here at the edge. This tool here is something I made, and it's made from a pair of fencing pliers. You can make this yourself if you need to. If you want to see how this is made, make sure to watch my Infinity Gauntlet video. Link will be in the description. And a couple passes and you can see that it looks pretty nice. It does leave a few little nicks and dings, but with a little bit of work you can get those out. As you can see, one side looks much nicer than the other. Now I did clean up those little nicks somewhat. I didn't clean them all the way. I could have, but I decided halfway through this that I think it looks a little bit more authentic if it's not quite perfect. These top parts we're going to bend over, and I'll show you that in just a second. Pop all these holes. You can use a drill too, but these hole punches are pretty inexpensive. This is a little bit of copper rod that I've got in the vise, and I'm just mushrooming the top over a little bit. And cutting it off. Now this is a little nail or something that I found in the garage, and I've got the top kind of hollowed out like a little bowl. And this is just to keep it from hitting this edge here when I am hammering the rivet down. So just put this in here, and it prevents you from ruining the hammered texture of the rivet from the other side. This was a little bit tedious to do all of these, but I think it looks pretty cool. I don't think it's historically accurate to have rivets like this as decorations in the Roman era, but I think it looks cool, so I put it in there. Had to have some kind of accents on it. This is just a little piece of 1/8 inch steel rod, and I'm going to sort of embed these into this by flipping these parts over on the top. And keeping a little bit of a spacer there to keep it from getting too tight. Bend these over and hammer them down once they're over far enough. And there you go. Now I can put these two top rivets in and secure that piece down. So how did I get the hammered finish on all these parts? Hammering it. This is just soft copper, and I'm just hammering it over and over. You will notice that it bends the metal though, so to straighten it out every now and then I'll hit it with a rawhide mallet to flatten it back out. Now I'm using some sockets, just random sized sockets, and I'm hitting it from the back with a rubber mallet. And I'm using a smaller socket here on the inside, or from the back I should say, and then flipping it over once again and using an even smaller socket inside of that. And the end result is just a little decoration here for the cheek plate. Looks pretty cool. Here's the strip that's going around the front of the helmet. And basically just pop one hole, rivet it, bend it around, and continue to do that. Doesn't really matter where you put these rivets, just as long as they're even, or fairly even. I didn't really measure any of this stuff, I just kind of did it freehand to give it a more authentic look. There's some little trim pieces for around the top of the ears. You have to figure out where those holes go. They won't be marked on the template. Now I noticed that the bottom was very flat, and I decided I didn't want it to be flat for the piece that covers your neck, so I went ahead and trimmed this out so it wasn't so flat. This will be updated in the template, so you won't have to worry about cutting this after. It will already be marked for you perfectly. I should also note that the mask part is not included in the template because it's made freehand, so see my previous video to make yours. Now for that piece, I'm just going to bend it by hand on the bench. Now the inner side is a little bit more bent than the outer side, which is why you see me focusing the bend there. And checking for a fitment. It's getting close, but not quite perfect. A little bit more work and we're ready to go. Now we're going to bend these little tabs up. And I'm just using a regular old pair of pliers, kind of a big pair of pliers, but just bending it straight up. Very simple. I decided to do the edge work I did on the other parts, the cheek plates, same as before. Optional, of course. And I put them on with the Clico clips just to get them in position so I knew where these holes would go. And then as soon as I knew where the holes would go, I made them the proper size. These are the ear pieces. Snap your fingers and they just come to life like that. It's very easy to make those. And just slide these in here and line the parts up. It requires a little bit of shaping and hammering to get them perfect, but you'll make them pretty easily. They're not hard parts to make. I decided to make my own hinge instead of using a store-bought hinge, and at the time I was just going to do something simple like a square rectangular sort of hinge, but I decided halfway through that it would look a little cooler if I did a little decoration instead. Very easy just to cut these parts out, and you can make them any shape you want, really. I decided to make a little Roman aquila. I wanted to keep the design very simple though, so as if a craftsman that was not interested in making it look too perfect, but instead cranking out armor was his job. Now the cheek plates can go on. You just kind of slide in here. Make sure you leave enough room for it to move, but then bend that back flap back around. And hammer it down. I also decided I needed some little straps to go on the bottom, so I made these little straps to go in so I can tie some leather to them. This is what the helmet looks like without the faceplate on it. But the faceplate is what you're all here to see, so here we go. Riveting this on. And I also put some little pieces on to mount a crest, an optional crest. And here's what it looks like. And here it is finished. Now the only thing I would have done a little differently, I think, is move the ear holes back just a little bit to get them off my ears. I can't feel it while it's on my head, but you certainly wouldn't want to get hit with it on your ear like that. Well, you wouldn't want to get hit anyway, but anyway, this is not for battle or anything, it's just for decoration, so certainly in aluminum you couldn't get hit anyway, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Be sure to see my full-length narrated tutorials where I show you how to make real armor with ordinary tools. Be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you get all notifications when I put out new videos. And if you want to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, find me on Facebook and Instagram at the links you see on your screen. And while you're here, check out some of these other videos I've got.